Welcome to the Comics Cube, everyone. We are live with Simon Birks, the writer of Antarctica from Top Cow. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you very much. Yeah, doing pretty good.
I ask you to give a quick introduction about yourself. You're an award-winning author. Uh, Tell people what you've worked on.
Yeah, well, writing is my passion. Fortunately, it's also sort of slightly now my job, which is lovely. But written since I was a young boy, lots of different things. Poetry, plays, films, yeah, novels, comics. So yeah, that's sort of me. And I've always, I've never not been writing. It's always been something. So yeah, it's just. In the last few years, obviously, I've sort of turned my attention or returned my attention to comics and yeah, and thus Antarctica is here. So
Why do you love comics?
they're beautiful, aren't they?
There's
I mean, they're beautiful. They're just you can sit there and you can very much that they are. It's like going to a gallery, a portrait gallery or something, but you get to do it in one comic, and it costs you £3.50 entry fee, and you get there and you get to sit there and yeah, look at the photos, look at the pictures, and just take the story on. I don't know. It's just fantastic. I mean, my ornaments at home are trades. So let's face it. I mean, that's what you'll see, as well as obviously novels and stuff in the back. But we have a lot of. There's not a lot of other sort of ornaments. It's just sort of yeah, whatever trays we've just picked up and are sitting there waiting for us to read. So
Did you grow up in Scotland?
I didn't grow up in Scotland. I grew up on the south coast of England, which is
Okay.
where my accent comes from. But about 6 years ago, moved up to Scotland, and because I was doing, my day job was IT. I've not done that for 3 years now. I'm fortunate enough to do publishing for the last 3 years. But yes, doing IT, and we moved up to Scotland because that was where the next contract was, and I was just a contractor, so it was. And fell in love with it really, and very much Scotland has been. It was a very good move for us. So there was a lot of support network here for comics as well as just publishing in general. So I've learned a lot from being here, and yeah, thoroughly enjoy it.
I guess that that it makes me curious because I do know about what I do know about the English comic scene is what we see internationally, the 2000 ADs,
Yeah.
to some extent the Beanos. Is it any different in Scotland versus England? And is there anything, for example, in England that we don't see outside that you would be a
I
big
mean,
fan that you're a big
yeah,
fan of?
I'm sure there's an awful lot of stuff, but certainly it was back in 2014. I went to my first Comic Con. Me and my wife went to our first Comic Con, and just to have a look. Really, I had this idea that I had some short film scripts that I would like to adapt into comics. Knew that I wasn't going to be able to have the time or the money to actually yeah, make them into short films. So yeah, had a look just to see what to see what it was like, see what the comic scene was like in general, the independence comic scene, and it was incredibly buoyant and lovely people there. And yeah, but after going to our first one, I was very enthused to yeah, pursue this idea of sort of yeah, turning my ideas or turning my attention, my writing attention into comics and learning the trade as we must do. So yeah, that's yeah, that's what we did. So is that the question? My brain goes,
What is it? Is there a specific comic that triggered
oh
it for
yeah.
you?
Um, really, it was does it? I picked up some independent comics, saw just the quality of them, the UK independent comics. So just the artist alley people over here,
Yeah.
and yeah, just kind of yeah, just fell in love with them really, and really I pick up sort of image books and sort of I'm not really a DC and Marvel person. My nan bought me comics or Spider-Man comics when I was 7, and sort of so that's how I first got into comics. But in my latter years, yeah, it's been more sort of or the Image Dark Horse sort of titles I've gone for. But so yeah, there's lots of great UK titles that you won't see over there. But similarly, I was lucky enough to go to San Diego this year, and we walked along Artist Alley there. A lot of great, again, independent comics there that we don't get to see over here. So yeah, there's always it's lovely to see. I mean, it's always such a for me quite a inclusive sort of environment, and when you go and look at comic books, there's a lot more inclusion and diversity in the comic books seen from what I've seen, and that just fills me with joy, really. So
especially lately, like both within the pages of the comics and also among the people making the comics, which probably explains the increased diversity of the within the comics. Did you so if again, people, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Simon Birks, writer of Antarctica from Top Cow. Were you a Top Cow reader before getting to work with them?
I first learnt I first started reading their stuff probably yes, actually we were, because we bought Aphrodite many years ago, not knowing it was a Top Cow book, but yes, and then Top Cow sort of did this Kickstarter for a stairway anthology, of which one of the rewards was like have a 6-page story in an anthology book. So so fortunately enough, I had enough money to back it at that, and jumped on the chance, and because I knew these sort of chances don't come along very often. And we were lucky enough. We went out, had sort of a round table with the other people, the other backers at that tier, and got to speak to Matt and co. And it was great. It was great. So
Matt is Matt Hawkins.
Yeah. He was. So they've been incredibly supportive, really, throughout this whole process. It's I run Blue Fox Comics in the UK, so it's a small independent sort of publishing, but obviously they're more organised and busier. So it's been lovely to sort of be drawn into that and guided through the processes and helped. So it's really good.
You talked about the increased diversity in comics these days, versus previous generations.
Yes.
One of the other things that maybe is a challenge within these days is the decline of print as a medium. Has that been challenging for you as a publisher?
We use Kickstarter. So I started the first Kickstarter in 2015, and then sort of used to do 2 or 3 a year, up to 2020, really, and the point where I during the pandemic, it was difficult to work from home and what I was doing. So we decided that we'll give it a go for 3 months to stop doing the IT and just try and do basically a Kickstarter every month, which is what we are achieving now. We still achieve. So so it's yes. Sorry. What was again? My brain goes. I go off on a tangent, and I apologize.
I was just asking if it was challenging to with print declining.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there was so really, we were very lucky because Kickstarter was our model. And during the pandemic, there was a lot of people didn't shy away from Kickstarter. I mean, almost people wanted to consume more. So we were fortunate enough to be in that position. So we're okay. We do get our trades do go into comic shops via Diamond, but that's not where our book sales mostly come from. It's mostly from, say, initial Kickstarters and then add-ons. Those books get added on as well onto future Kickstarters. So
Kickstarter's really changed the whole industry, hasn't it?
All of a sudden, it's in it's in your hands now. Sort of, it's obviously a bit of work and learning curve and stuff like that. But when I was younger, I seem to have a saying, really young, by my own. So I was very much of a person who wanted to do things by themselves, and this is kind of how it happened. I'm very fortunate to have been born in an age where the internet was born as well, so which obviously gives us a lot more access and a lot more ability. And again, I was working in IT, so I had a lot more knowledge on how to do a lot of things by myself. So yes, so when Kickstarter came along, and I could see that we could, we could reach out and get funding and create the comics ourselves, which was one of the, I think it was one of the takeaways from that first Comic Con that we went around. Obviously, there were people there also running Kickstarters at that time, so I kind of probably learnt about it then. And then again, one of the things I do, I look at something, I think, can I do that? And if I can, I'll just try and run with it and try and do it myself.
Can you, so for everyone joining us, we're talking to Simon Birks, writer of Antarctica. Tell me, for anyone who hasn't read Antarctica, can you give us a quick elevator pitch as to what Antarctica is about? Like, why should people read Antarctica by Simon Birks?
The tagline was, it was Stargate meets his dark materials, and to a degree that obviously there are elements in there as well. It's set in Antarctica. I'm a big The Thing fan. That there's not a rabid alien dog there, but you know, I like these sort of insular sort of settings that, you know, you kind of very claustrophobic. But it's also a very, it's a story with feelings. We sort of take a lot of the first issue. You know, we see Hannah's growing up, and the fact, you know, when her father disappeared, how that changed her, and then other things which changed her as well. So, and really, we see her motivation for doing everything that she does in the rest of the story. And yeah, again, when I was at San Diego, fortunate enough to be at the Top Cow booth signing comics, signing issue 1, and people were coming up and they were saying, yeah, this actually made me, you know, made me feel something. It's sort of like it really kind of things happen and you get sort of gut punches, and that's where it is. And we've got a diverse range of characters in there that we develop over the series. We also it's also a multiversal type story as well. That's what happens kind of at the end of issue 1. You find a second Hannah. So Hannah Curtis is the main protagonist. A second Hannah, Dr. Curtis, sort of arrives, and that's where things start going very sci-fi. It's so yeah, it's sci-fi, it's a mystery, it's a thriller. It's got a lot of good stuff going on.
Seems like the perfect time for a story like that to come out. We were seeing a lot of stories now with female protagonists, as well as a lot of multiversal stories. But again, like you mentioned, it's not a superhero book, so it does set it apart from most multiversal stories, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not a person when they write generally who writes about kings and queens or prime ministers or presidents. I write about the people on the ground sort of doing it. So it's very much, and you know, you could put superheroes in that sort of category as well, because you know, they're sort of really powerful people. So no, I'm not really talking about, I'm talking about everyday people in strange situations doing their best to cope and make decisions as things change around them. So yeah, that's kind of how I approach all the stories that I write. So and so certainly with the female protagonist, it's something that I've always written. I've always felt very comfortable, and I enjoy writing from a female protagonist. So even when I first started writing, so it's just one of those things. I finally, maybe I was ahead of my time, I don't know, but I finally arrived in my time at this tender age of 53. Thank God. So that's good. And again, the initial story was sort of devised by myself probably 5-6 years ago. So there's it's certainly not one of those things where I thought, oh yeah, those things, these are pretty popular right now, I write about that. It's just, this is the story, and fortunately it fits in with a lot of things which are also going on at the moment.
Fortunately, it's in the zeitgeist. I spoke to Greg Rucka a few years ago. Like, he was one of my first guests on this channel, and Greg Rucka also writes a lot of female protagonists. And one of the reasons, and I asked him, like, why is he so drawn to writing female protagonists? One of the reasons that he gave, among a variety of reasons, was that he believes that as a one-to-one swap of a male protagonist, there is a higher quotient for drama. Would you agree that this is the case?
Yeah, I think so.
Like danger and stakes.
I can definitely see where that's coming from. Yeah, very much. but again, a lot of it, yeah, I try and yes, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. But again, it's one of those things you just you sit down at the keyboard and you think, okay, what is this story? Who's going to be? And a lot of the time, the characters kind of appear and they develop, and so yeah. But yeah, it's a fair point.
Did you base Hannah on anyone?
No, not really. Just somebody who's had a real tough start to their lives, and we can all sort of kind of empathize, sympathize with with her situation where her father's he worked away in Antarctica, always looked forward to him coming back, and then just one day he just didn't come back, and how that would how that would affect her, and the seemingly loving father just not being there, and how she goes off the rails and then and is helped back on them and everything. So she's very strong and just intelligent. I mean, it's just yeah, it's and funny. It's just all those things. It's just people. Funny enough, people are all those things. So I'm just running a person.
Simon Birks, writer of Antarctica. For if anyone has any questions, please leave them in the chat. You did mention earlier that after reading the first issue, you got a lot of people coming up to you during a convention, telling you that it made them feel things. Did you notice any patterns as to the people who were coming up to you? Like, I guess my question is like, are you able to describe the target market that you were able to hit?
Not really. No, I would say not really. Yeah, because it's being published by Top Cow, I think probably quite a few of them will be Top Cow followers, and quite a few of them will also be obviously Image followers as well. But no, it is a range of people, which is lovely, and it's. I think it's always also the case when with the Blue Fox titles that I've written as well. When we're at conventions, it is a broad range of people that come up and say, yes, really enjoyed this, and stuff like that. So no, not really, and that's a nice thing. That's a nice thing. I can't say it's any particular, part of society who likes my comics, but it's accessible to all, I think.
If you were to say that you had a message that you were sending with Antarctica, what would that message be?
I think it's within the comic story itself. It's kind of based around what would happen if you make a different decision, and I think that's what multiversal stories kind of can do. And also and how the worlds that we grow up in, how that affects us. The Dr. Curtis character who comes in is living in a very different world than Hannah is. Much more hardline sort of capitalist sort of world, where they're just sucking up all the petrol and all the oil and just to hell with it. Let's just make as much money. And now all of a sudden they're thinking, okay, what are we going to do now? We need to actually we kind of have destroyed this planet. We need to find somewhere else to live. And this is why the idea of being able to move the privileged people across to a different planet is kind of one of the driving factors. So yeah, it's those sorts of things. How things can affect you, and then how different decisions. That's the major thing. And yeah, but I don't know. It's a fun story to write. As a writer, I'm definitely a sort of writer who I know what the very, very last page looks like of the whole saga, but the actual how I get there is sort of still in the air. So I very much I sort of I come up with the plan, the idea for the arc, and then kind of a loose plan, and then I just start running the characters, see where they go, see where they take me, and it's always a lot of fun, and I need that. I need to my brain sort of surprises me all the time. So.
Sci-fi is fascinating because for all of its fantastical trappings and things that could never happen, like running into a different version of yourself, it's really just a way to talk about everyday issues, isn't it? So like a multiversal thing is all about like the choices that you didn't make. A lot of it says like you could be writing about the future, but you're really talking about the present.
Yeah. I mean, there's such a, I mean, a big fan of Battlestar Galactica, you know, the recent, the remake in the 2000s. And that was
Mhm.
a very, very on it sort of discussing things, current day things of then in a sci-fi environment. And, you know, it kind of, yeah, it allows different angles and things. And that, yeah. And I think, yeah, very much with here as well. It's, it yeah, you see, as you read the comic, you'll see different
Yeah.
things come in, and you know, hopefully, and the idea is you look, and it also will make you people think as well, the reader think, and whilst enjoying themselves, and also worrying about, yeah, is anyone, you know, anyone people I like going to die next, which is the classic sort of
Yeah.
thing.
I guess that's one of the things that throws me off a lot about modern discourse about these things is like when people say like, oh, sci-fi or comics is so political now. It didn't used to be political. It's like it was always political. You just never noticed because it's an
Yeah,
allegory.
yeah. People seriously say, I mean, you know, some people like to look at things and that's and they like to comment on them. That's a nice way of putting
Yeah,
it. People like to comment on stuff, and so they're suddenly looking and think, "Oh, wow, this is, as you say, this is very political and all that sort of stuff." And of clearly, you know, you look back and all the old comics, and it's, you know, almost more so, which is fascinating.
it's blatantly so. Like
Yeah, yeah.
when people say things like, "When did Star Trek become political?" I'm
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah,
day one.
yeah, yeah. Indeed, it's brilliant. So, yeah, I love writing sci-fi. I do write quite a bit of horror as well.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so writing this sci-fi story, it's fun, and it's fun because I'm not writing it thinking, oh, I can't put this in because it's too much like this TV show or movie. I'm actually, you know, it's actually, I love putting this in because it's a little bit of a homage, really. You know, I don't mind putting it in at all. So in that sense, that's quite freeing as well, being able to actually kind of, yeah, just embrace, you know, the stuff that's gone before and put it in, and obviously maybe put a little bit of a twist on it, and yeah, yeah, it's thoroughly enjoyable.
Can you talk about your writing process? Like, how do you go about writing an arc or writing an issue or writing an issue into an arc?
Mm.
And is it different when writing comics versus writing game boards or
Yeah. I think,
novels?
yeah, the yes, it is. It is different writing style, certainly, and I use that to my advantage because sometimes if I'm, you know, writing a comic or a film script and I get stuck, I will actually go to a different sort of style. So I'll write a short story in that situation, and that short story will give me, you know, naturally it's not just all dialogue. So you know you force yourself to write a bit more about, okay, you know, what's happening in the background, you know, why are they there, you know, a bit more of the thought processes, so that it can help being able to, you know, write in different sort of mediums to progress a story. Comics, it's a lot of the time, yeah, I've got a little notepad, so I write numbers 1 to 22 down. I'll have an idea, kind of maybe what the cliffhanger is, or maybe what a key scene I want to put in there is, and so I'll put just like a against each line. I'll just write a brief summary of what happens on that page, and then I slowly but surely fill it in. Sometimes I don't fit it all in. I get to a stage and I think, okay, I actually, it's going to be more fun just to write this now. So, and I'll start writing, and with you know, and I don't know what's happening on every page. And invariably, what happens is that, you know, you put one line, a one line page description will turn into 2 pages or 3 pages, and so, you know, it's good to
Ah,
have that sort of flexibility. I find when I'm writing, and sometimes, you know, 3 pages turn into one because I don't know, just the way it goes. It works in a different way. So yeah, so that's always fun, and because we've got, you know, a lot of characters here as well, it's nice to be able to think, okay, well, you know, I don't know, I just trying to be think what would naturally happen next. What's the most sensible thing to happen? And yeah, it works very well. It takes the first draft probably takes about, I don't know, a week, I think, probably to put on.
really?
Yeah, and then, you know, you tweak it a little bit, send it off to Willi Roberts, who's the artist on Antarctica, and he works his magic and sends it back and tweaks things and says, how about we do this way, and does the amazing designs. Yeah, and I get that back and I have a look and I think, yeah, okay, yeah, I can now improve what I've written because Willi has done so much with it,
Yeah.
and I can see it, and it's quite nice to be able to see, obviously the actual what's kind of in your mind and how he's done it, and I can work with that, and it can sometimes when I'm writing, being restricted in what I can do really helps me. It's like sort of when you're at school getting the first line of say, the teacher gives you, here's the first line of a story, now write the rest. See, that really worked well for me because I can do that. It restricts me and I can just, okay, I can work within that. So that's quite nice as well. So after I get that back, after I get that the art back, I can really sort of start polishing the story to be the best it can be.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things whenever I read, a novel, like it's very clear that there is a very clear thought process as to the very exact words that are put on the page. Versus when I read a comic script, it does feel a little bit more mechanical, and it doesn't feel like, because it's a lot of descriptions, and it doesn't really feel like it's a complete story until the art stage.
Oh yeah, completely.
And speaking of that, let's talk about Willi. How did you find Willi Roberts?
I've working also running Blue Fox. We look out for artists to do our work, to do our art, and there's a forum that I go on sometimes, and just to sort of kind of say, I've got this type of work, and people sort of send you their art. The artists send you their art, and Willi was one of those, and it was for I think it was for a comic called Cloda, which we've done 3 issues of, and yeah, he did. It was amazing. You sit there and think, I can't believe these people aren't being employed by Marvel or DC or whoever. So it was just brilliant. So I found him on there. We worked together, say on Cloda. He also does the internal art for some of our choose your own adventure books that I write as well. Awesome. So he does the internal art for those, and also he does the art. He's doing the art for. We've done a revisionist adaptation of The Thing on the Doorstep. So he does the art for that as well. So
that's awesome,
which is very cool. So knew him from there. So it was fantastic when Top Cow said yes. We'd like to go ahead with with your pitch, and I said. I then actually contacted Willi saying, would you like to do the art for it? Because I knew him, and I knew his art style, would fit really well with it. And it's the same with Lyndon White, who's the letterer on the book, and he does a lot of work for Blue Fox. He's probably one of the first artists we had. And he's lettered a lot of our titles. But he's also drawn a few of our titles ways. He's a great artist. And you'll find Lyndon's work on the variant cover for issue 1 and the variant cover for issue 6. So it's being able to bring them along and kind of bring a Blue Fox team to the Top Cow Image sort of area is just a dream come true, really.
How did you go about pitching the Top Cow? Did you approach them or did they approach you?
Well, after we had I had the 6 pages in the Stairway Anthology book, which is the first time Antarctica appeared anywhere. And those 6 pages turns out to be the last 6 pages of issue 1, where she turns up in Antarctica. The first 16 pages is what I created before. So after doing that, I was obviously kind of still in contact with them, and I asked if they'd be interested, and they said yes, they'd be interested in because obviously I think they quite enjoyed the workflow that we had together when we were developing the 6 pages. So I pitched the bigger arc with the 5 issues, and a few months later they came back and said yes, they would like to do it. So, and that was kind of the process. Obviously it's an ongoing series now, so it's a lot more. So that's been a lot of fun as well. That transition from just dreaming up 5 issues to now dreaming up ongoing issues. So
Willi's art is appropriately very claustrophobic. That is, I assume, the effect you're going for.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very much. Yeah, I want people to feel trapped. This is where they are. They can't go anywhere. And then to say, I think at the end of issue 2, it's very apparent that even if they could get out of Antarctica, they still can't go anywhere. Yeah, so yeah, they are backed into a corner, and they will have to fight to get home. So yes, no, very very much. Woody is very good at just being able to build that sort of thing. I mean, especially well, lots of different ways, but he has great the facial expressions on everyone. You can just say, yeah, I can see that. I can completely. It's very animated. Yeah, and it would be in that sort of thing. Everybody would be heightened in that sort of environment. So, yes, good. I'm glad it feels claustrophobic, and yeah, it doesn't stop either.
You mentioned earlier that you know how this whole saga ends.
Mm.
We're looking at what issue number for that?
I just don't know. I don't know. I'd like to believe it was, I'd like to believe it's issue 70, but who knows? Let's say, I really what we're looking at here, we will live here, and we will know that we need to buy the comics, and I get to keep writing this fantastic story. So yeah, but in my mind, let's say 50 or issue 70, something like that. There's a lot there. There's a lot there. So that would be my that would be lovely. And obviously, but the story in many ways is as long as the story will be. So, and that's what I've always thought, and that's how I've always approached writing. It's not a case of I'm going to squeeze this into this many pages or this many issues, or I'll just I'll just work with it really, and respect the story.
So speaking of which, we're talking about buying the story so that they can support it, so that we can continue seeing how it develops. I have placed the pre-order link for the TPB for Volume 1 on the chat, so everybody can go click on that. It'll be available in February 5. It collects the first 5 issues, which are already out. The 6th issue is coming out next month.
Yes, coming out December. The FOC, the final order cutoff, is Monday. So if you're watching this and if you're yet to stick it on your pull list or order it, that's what to do. To just wander along and to the comic shop and or wherever you buy your comics, and just stick it on your pull list. It's issue 6. We go back 15 years, so effectively we're not starting again, but they are the characters, or some of the characters that you've seen before. Well, obviously Hannah is a lot younger. Which Hannah though, you have to read the comic, but it is. But we see her father, and we see some more of the incident around it. So, but yeah, so that's really exciting as well, and it's quite nice because this arc I'd started writing before Top Cow had said yes, we'd like you to do more. So this was me sort of naturally thinking, okay, well, what would come next? If I ever got the dream chance of continuing it. So again, this isn't forced or anything like that. This is just what was going to happen. And fortunately enough, we now get to tell it. So yeah, so we go back 15 years. We see we see at least 2 Hannahs and a young, and I don't know. It's just a lot of fun, a lot more mystery. Yeah, still, same amount of mystery, really. Same cliffhangers. It's the same. It's the same comic. But yeah, you get to fill in some of the blanks, and obviously we get to post a few more mysteries as well at the same time, because we've all watched Lost. We know that we can't explain everything, not all at once. So
I feel like that was a little bit of shade.
Would I?
Lost, I never watched Lost. Lost was recommended to me season after season after season.
Okay.
And then when it finally ended, they were like, yeah, don't watch it anymore. It's not worth it. It's like, all right. Guess that saves me 6 seasons of watching something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is sort of meandered a little bit. I think it's common knowledge. It meandered a little bit in the middle, and then they had a little bit more of a focus, and then it probably ended quite strongly. But it was it was just fun, and I think for the audience, me being one of them, I lap up the mystery. If they just, they have a hatch obviously with the numbers, and you don't know what it's about, you don't know what anything's about, but I'm literally all in. That's great. Just bring it on. I'm happy to wait it out, and as long as they pay it off, I'm happy to wait it out. So, and that's the lovely thing. The lovely thing about Antarctica is that yes, we do have mysteries, and continuing, we add and add and add to the mysteries, but we also do solve and give you answers. As we go along.
Speaking of which, it does sound like you're having a lot of fun trying to get people guessing as to which Hana you're writing about at the moment.
Yeah, it's just great. It's just great. I can't. It's lovely. It's a lovely situation, and it's a joy to write. It's a joy to write because we just have different versions, and if it when you get to the end of arc 5, when you get to arc 1, issue 5, you sort of we get introduced to another Hannah, and so there's this one as well that we there'll also be at some point we will need to know, and it's great because Willi sort of he sends me messages and things like that. So Willi certainly has a lot of good ideas on what's happening with this third Hannah. So which is lovely, and it's just it's such a it's such a great team to be with as well, working on it. I mean, it's all just pretty dreamy at the moment. So
Simon Birks, writer of Antarctica from Top Cow Comics. I have a couple more questions for you. The first question has nothing to do with Antarctica. You mentioned writing choose your own adventure books.
Yes.
I think a lot of us have grown up with choose your own adventure books. What's that like? What are the challenges when writing choose your own adventure books?
Well, that's a good question.
Feels like it's a nightmare.
Yeah. It certainly it used to be, and it probably still is to a degree. But again, Finding Fantasy came out when I was 12. Very formative. I've got all 59 of them downstairs sitting on the shelf. So it was a really big thing for me when I was younger, and still is. I've always tried to write them and always failed. Mainly because I don't think I didn't have the IT. It seemed, or I just didn't have the process, like so many things. But a few years ago, in between contracts, IT contracts, I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a really big chunk of my time. And I bought those Pathfinder tiles that you can get for your RPGs, and just sort of stuck them down on a table and sort of put them in an order so that I could go in my brain. So obviously I'm a very visual person, so seeing all these tiles on the table and putting like little Pathfinder NPC tokens and monsters on there, I was able to bring up a story in my mind what this dungeon crawl was going to be, which is lovely. And also there's a piece of software that I use. There's quite a few pieces of software, but the one that I use is called the Gamebook Authoring Tool, and that does a lot of the hard work for you. You type you can put all your sections in, and you can link all your sections. It shows you a nice flow chart, so you can see if something's going wrong or if something's not there. I have a Substack called A Branching Narrative, so where I'm also going into how I write game books and how I use these tools to help. So if anyone's interested, by all means pop onto that and have a look. But yeah, it's interesting.
I've never spoken to anyone who treated writing so procedurally.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I think again, it helps that I've got an IT background. I mean, I've got quite that part of my brain is definitely quite logical, and part of it is completely not logical. So I think that probably helps. So it really is the marrying of the two when it comes to game book adventures, because you have to sit there and you have to work it out. But it's a lot of fun. And it also allows again Blue Fox to, as well as going to comic conventions, we also go to tabletop game conventions, and that's lovely because there's a big crossover there as well.
Yeah.
So having the game books allow us to go there and legitimately have a table and say, look, we've got a like a solo RPG or a game book. So that's really nice as well, being able to say that. And also we're kind of developing that slowly into maybe a bit more of an RPG, because again, that's a bit of the zeitgeist at the moment as well. You can't really look at Kickstarter very much without seeing RPGs. So yeah.
I think the marrying of the logical and illogical side is a great way to talk about writing, because it can be as illogical as it wants to be, but it has to make sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the first draft, less so, but certainly, I mean, the logic, the logical bit comes in when you redraft, and that makes sense because you're going back and procedurally going through and sort of working out why did I call them Fred here and Arnie over here, because that's generally what I do. People change their names between the beginning of the book and the end of the book, and you don't notice it. So yeah, and it's good. I mean, I enjoy writing novels. I've got like a fantasy novel and a horror novel, but obviously they're a lot more work. But also with the game books, I thought was quite interesting is because when I first was writing the first one, I approached it with doing the sort of the finding classic second person view. The you are doing this, you are doing that, and I found I was finding it quite difficult to write. But then I kind of thought, okay, well, I've written novels and they're longer, so I actually changed it. So on the first game book that I wrote, you actually, again, a female protagonist. You play an adventurer called Darillion, whose ward has been kidnapped, and so she's got to go and find him. So, and that was a lot easier when it was third person. It turned it into a book. I just found it a lot easier to write. I think that there was a transition there between writing novels and writing game books. The second game book I wrote was second person, so it was so you and everything. But so I was able to do it. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun coming up with these sorts of scenarios, and it's just great. Young Simon would have been over the moon to know that I managed to crack that nut. It's very happy.
Awesome. My final question is, fill in the blank. If you like blank, you should read Antarctica.
Gosh. Flippantly, I'm going to say, if you like excitement, you should read Antarctica. But if you like actual book, what sort of books? I mean, I read a lot. I mean, okay, let's say Black Science. So Rick Remender, sort of. It's not. It's not that. Sorry, you may be able to hear my dog. It's not that, but it's that sort of science fiction and thriller mystery type of thing. So if you're a Rick Remender fan, maybe, I mean, I do like his books very much, but I also read a lot of Jeff Lemire and Ed Brubaker I've been reading quite recently. So that sort of thing. So I've got quite an eclectic taste, and sort of I bring lots of things in. But yeah, I'd say so. There's lots of stuff you can be reading.
Thank you so much, Simon.
My pleasure.
Best of luck on the next arc.
Yes, no problem at all. And of course, everyone remember to grab issue 6 now.
Yeah. Grab issue 6. The FOC is this Monday, so make sure to fill that out.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you.